People who turn their backs on their families. What finally made you leave for good? I was 26 years old when I realized my mother had been stealing my identity since I was 14. It started with a phone call from a collection agency about a credit card I'd never opened. Then came the threatening letters. 6 bills, $43,000 in debt, all in my name. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She just stared at me from across our kitchen table, the same table where she taught me to write my name in kindergarten. I needed it for us, she said, lighting a cigarette, even though she knew I had asthma. For this house, for your college. You think all this was free? I worked 2 jobs during college, thinking my scholarship money wasn't enough. Meanwhile, she was vacationing in Cancun using credit cards in my name. That night, I requested my full credit report. The devastation was worse than I imagined. My credit score was 417. There were 3 payday loans, a repossessed car, and a foreclosure on a vacation home in Florida I'd never heard of. Every document bore my forged signature, a signature I'd seen her practice on napkins for years, thinking was just her obsessive perfectionism. It wasn't the debts that hurt the most. It was discovering evidence of the double life she'd built with my identity. Designer clothes, jewelry store accounts, a country club membership where she envisioned me as her successful, entrepreneurial daughter, always on the go. All my adult struggles were funding her fantasy life. I packed up and drove to the police station. The officer looked bored as I laid out my paperwork. "Domestic fraud is complicated," he said. "Most victims don't make it to trial." I'm not most victims. 3 days later, I sat across from the detective. To press charges, I'll have to formally state that I was not a willing participant. Your mother will be charged with a felony. She could probably go to jail. Are you sure you want to do this? The detective asked. Once we start, there's no turning back. I thought about my childhood. My mother was a single mom who worked the graveyard shift. She'd leave me dinners with little notes. Study hard and reach for the stars. I believed we were a team, fighting together. As I hesitated, my phone vibrated with a text from her. "I've always sacrificed everything for you. If you do this, you're dead to me." I stared at those words for a long time. My entire life, I'd been taught that family loyalty came first. Before truth, before self-respect, before justice. I looked up at the detective and held out my phone so he could see her message. "That's why I'm sure," I said, pointing to the text. The arrest had happened on a Tuesday. I wasn't there, but neighbors had called to tell me. They described her screaming my name as she was being loaded into a police car, yelling at me for being ungrateful, for betraying her after everything she'd done. My father, who left when I was 3, had called that night. "You don't betray your family," he said. "No matter what." "Where were you when she was ruining my life?" I asked. The line went dead. My aunt showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door until neighbors threatened to call security. "She has cancer," she screamed through the door. "Did you know she needed that money for treatment?" I didn't answer. Later, I called her doctor. There was no cancer, never had been. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for Thursday. As I walked into the courthouse, my phone filled with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins calling me heartless, uncles asking what kind of person sues their own mother. My grandmother, who I thought was dead, left a voicemail saying I was never worthy of the family name. I sat alone on a wooden bench, waiting to be called to testify. Then I saw him across the courtroom, my older brother Michael, who had disappeared a decade ago after a big fight with my mother. He looked different, healthier, more confident. He sat down next to me without a word. "How did you know?" I asked. "I've been keeping an eye on public records with your name on them," he said quietly. "I've been waiting for this day for years." I turned to him, confusion washing over me. "What do you mean?" He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of a document, a credit card application from 12 years ago in my name. "I was 14 then. You weren't the first," he said. "And if you don't finish this, you won't be the last." Before I could respond, the bailiff called my name. As I stood to enter the courtroom, Michael grabbed my wrist. "There's something else you need to know," he whispered. "Something a lot worse than credit card fraud." In the courtroom, Mom looked smaller than I remembered. Her eyes were puffy, her hair was a mess. When she saw me, she whispered, "I love you." I avoided looking at her during my testimony. I focused on the paperwork, on the detective's questions, on the facts, not on the woman who read me bedtime stories, not on the woman who taught me to ride a bike, just on the criminal who had stolen my identity. The judge scheduled a formal trial for next month and set bail. As they led my mother away, she didn't look at me. Michael was waiting outside. We walked to a nearby coffee shop without saying a word. For 10 years, I believed he had abandoned us. My mother told me he was on drugs, that he stole from her, that he threatened her. Looking at him now, clear-eyed, in a neat button-down shirt, a wedding ring on his finger, it was hard to piece together the image. "I'm sorry I didn't look for you," I said, breaking the silence. He shook his head. "She convinced you I was the bad guy, just like she convinced me you were complicit in what she did to me." The waiter brought us coffee. Michael didn't touch his. "When I was 17, he began, I found out she was taking out student loans, credit cards, even a second mortgage on the house, all in my name. When I confronted her, she convinced my dad I was lying, that I did it myself. She beat me so badly I ended up in the hospital. I tried to remember when I was 9. My mom told me Michael had been in a car accident. After I turned 18, I tried to file charges. No one believed me. She was a respected teacher, a single mother who worked hard for her kids. I was just a troubled teenager." He pulled out his wallet and pulled out what looked like a business card. He slid it across the table. "That detective helped me back then. He couldn't get a conviction, but he trusted me. He told me to keep an eye on your credit reports when you got older. Warned me she'd probably do the same to you." I stared at the card. Detective James Morales, the same detective I'd spoken to 3 days ago. "He got your last name," Michael continued. "Called me right away. Is that the worst thing you said?" I asked. "That she did it to you first?" Michael looked down at his untouched coffee. "No," he said quietly. "It was about Lily." My heart stopped. "What about Lily?" "Lily was our little sister. She died when I was 7. Car accident. At least that's what Mom always told us. Michael would have been 15 then." "There was no accident," he said, his voice barely audible. "I've been collecting evidence for years. Detective Morales helped me." He pulled a folder out of his bag. Inside were dozens of documents, insurance policies, medical records, police reports. "Mom took out 5 life insurance policies on Lily in the 6 months before she died," he said, pointing to the papers. "All triple death benefits. The total payout was over $2 million. My hands shook as I shuffled through the papers. This can't be true. The night Lily died, I heard her crying. Mom had given her something to help her sleep. When I checked on her, she was barely breathing. I called 911, but Mom had already called them, reporting a car accident 20 minutes away. By the time they realized there was a real emergency at our house, it was too late. I remembered that night in fragments. Mom waking me up, telling me we had to go to the hospital, the confused police officers, the doctor's bewildered expression, Mom's theatrical collapse at the hospital. How do you know all this? The paramedic who arrived suspected something was wrong. The timeline didn't add up. There was no evidence of a car crash, but my mom's brother was the chief of police at the time. The investigation was closed. The paramedic kept notes. He gave them to me years later. I felt sick. "Why are you telling me this now?" Michael met my eyes for the first time. "Because last week my mom took out a life insurance policy on you. $2 million with triple accidental death." The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. I gripped the edge of the table. "That's why I was watching your notes," he continued. "I was afraid something like this would happen after you confronted her about the identity theft. When Detective Morales said you were filing charges, she was planning to kill me," I whispered. Michael nodded. "We think so, but now she's in custody. Are you safe?" I laughed bitterly. "Safe? My own mother planned to kill me for the insurance money." He reached across the table and squeezed mine. His touch was unfamiliar. A stranger's touch, really. "After all these years, we can stop her," he said. "This time, for good." The trial was scheduled for April, but in March, Mom's lawyer made a plea offer. She would serve 7 years for identity theft if I agreed to drop further investigation. Detective Morales advised against it. "We're close to building a case for your sister's death," he said. "If you take this deal, this investigation will go away." I spent a week agonizing over the decision. Taking the deal meant Mom would be punished, but not for her worst crime. Rejecting it meant risking proving a 12-year-old murder with the risk that she might walk away from it all. In the end, I decided to fight it. The prosecutor added insurance fraud charges when we presented evidence of policies in my name. Mom's lawyer called for a psychological evaluation, arguing that she suffered from Munchausen syndrome by proxy. The trial was adjourned. During this time, Michael introduced me to his family, his wife Sarah and their 4-year-old daughter Emma. They lived 3 hours away in a small coastal town. He was an accountant. Sarah taught elementary school. Their house was full of sunshine and children's drawings. "You can stay with us as long as you need," Sarah offered. "We have a guest room." I lived in constant fear in my apartment. Every unexpected sound made me jump. I took them up on their offer and took a leave of absence from work. Living with Michael's family was like entering an alternate universe, a universe where parents spoke kindly to their children, where disagreements didn't end in silence, where love wasn't conditional. I watched how Michael would kneel to speak to Emma at eye level, how he never raised his voice, how he apologized when he made a mistake. "Did you learn that from books?" I asked him one night after Emma was asleep. He smiled sadly. "I learned what not to do from our parents. The rest is just trying to do the opposite." In May, Detective Morales called with news. They had found the paramedic who had been on scene the night Lily died. He was willing to testify. They had also found Lily's original toxicology report, which showed a lethal dose of sleeping pills. The report had been buried, replaced with a fake version showing only minor traces consistent with the story of a car crash. The prosecutor had added first-degree murder charges. When the news broke, the family members who had been harassing me suddenly went silent. No more angry voicemails, no more accusations, just deafening silence, except for my father. He showed up at Michael's house unannounced, knocking on the door at midnight. "You've got to stop this witch hunt," he croaked, clearly drunk. "Your mother isn't a murderer." Michael stood in the doorway, blocking his entry. "Did you know about Lily, Dad?" Our father's face twisted. "Your sister was sick. She was always sick. Your mother did everything for her." "That's not what I asked," Michael said calmly. "Did you know she killed her?" Our father lunged forward, but Michael was ready. He grabbed his arm, twisted it behind his back, and pinned him against the porch wall. "Come near my family again and I'll arrest you," Michael said. "We're not scared kids anymore." After his father left, Michael slumped onto the couch. "Do you think he knew?" I asked. "I think he suspected," Michael said, "but he didn't want to know for sure." The trial began in September. I testified for 3 days, describing the identity theft scheme, the insurance policies, the inconsistencies in Lily's death. Michael testified about what he saw the night Lily died. A paramedic, now a doctor, testified about arriving at our home and finding a child in respiratory failure, and a mother who seemed more concerned with maintaining her story about a car accident than saving her daughter. The mother didn't take the stand. Her lawyer portrayed her as mentally ill, suffering from a disorder that drove her to harm her children for attention. They brought in experts to testify about Munchausen syndrome by proxy, making her look sick instead of evil. The jury deliberated for 6 days. On the 7th day, they came back with a verdict: guilty on all counts, identity theft, fraud, and the murder of Lily Evans. As the judge read the verdict, life in prison without the possibility of parole, my mother finally looked at me. There was no remorse in her eyes, just a cold fury at being caught. Outside the courthouse, reporters shoved microphones in my face, asking me what it was like to send my own mother to prison. I was speechless. Michael led me through the crowd to his car. That night, while everyone was asleep, I sat on Michael's porch, looking at the stars. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight on my chest. My phone rang, an unfamiliar number. "Hello. This is a collect call from Mountain View Correctional Institution. Are you taking this call?" I should have hung up. Instead, I said yes. "Why?" My mother's voice was empty. "After everything I've done for you." The familiar manipulation, the guilt, the implied victim. Once, it would have worked. "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked. "Besides stealing my identity and planning to kill me." Then silence. "I gave you life, and you tried to take it away. That's not love, Mom. That's ownership." "You'll never run from me," she said, her voice changing, hardening. "You're more like me than you know." I thought of Michael inside, asleep next to his wife, of their daughter, safe in her bed, loved unconditionally, of the life I might yet be able to build, free of my mother's poison. No, I said, I'm nothing like you, and I never will be. I hung up and blocked the number. The next morning, I applied for a job at an interior design firm in Michael's City. I found a small apartment 10 minutes from theirs. I started therapy. I learned to sleep without checking the locks 3 times. On the anniversary of Lily's death, Michael and I visited her grave for the first time in years. We brought flowers and pulled weeds. We told her we were sorry. We told her the truth was finally out. As we walked back to the car, Michael stopped. Do you ever think about the lost years? What our lives would have been like if we'd known the truth earlier? I thought about it. I try not to. We can't get those years back. He nodded. But we got each other back. That's something. It was more than something. It was everything. 6 months later, I met someone. David, an architect with kind eyes who asked permission before holding my hand for the first time. On our 3rd date, he asked about my family. It's complicated, I said. I cut ties with my parents. I waited for judgment, for awkward questions. Instead, he nodded. Sometimes that's the healthiest choice, he said. Family has to earn its place in your life, just like anyone else. I nearly cried in the middle of the restaurant. A letter had arrived from Mom's prison last week. I recognized her handwriting on the envelope. For a moment, I considered opening it. Old habits die hard. The need for approval, the hope that maybe she had finally changed. Instead, I lit a fire in my new home. David sat next to me as I tossed the unread letter into the fire. Are you okay? He asked. I watched the paper curl and turn black, taking her words with it. I'm free, I said, and for the first time in my life, it was true.